Okay, welcome back to Spirit Music Meetups. So we're doing another video here. It's going to be very interesting. This morning I got 8 pages and I'll roll through them and then you guys can comment on them and get the conversation rolling. I'm just getting it started. You guys need to continue. And I don't really do this very often. Usually I just get up, as soon as my feet hit the floor, I'm going. I'm just going from one thing to the next. But we had a men's group, maybe 3 other guys, so there's 4 of us total. We were meeting at Foothills, not Foothills. We were at the food court over at Park Mall here in Tucson, Arizona, and we had a nice little dinner. And they're older guys to me. Well, I think one guy's young. I think maybe one guy's younger, 2 or I'm not sure. But they all have been married much longer than I have. And so I was all ears. I had some real important questions. So it kind of bothered me. I really went to bed asking these questions. And when I woke up to go to the bathroom, I was asking these questions. And I would fall asleep and I wasn't getting the answer. A lot of times I get the answers in dreams. And I was always surprised that I didn't get any answers in the dreams. I was really desperate for answers to a lot of the questions that came up during our talk. These three Christian guys, you know, more experience in marriage than I have. Anyway, I waited till I was 53, and I just knew God told me this was the one, and you're going to be together. That key word, together, with her. Anyway. So I didn't get my answers. So in the morning, I looked at this picture to help me focus because I'm kind of sleepy. I sat in my chair. I didn't lay down because if I lay down, I go back to sleep for some reason. So I sat in my chair and I looked at a picture of Jesus, that Akiane. She's a child prodigy. She sees the Lord. She's seen the Lord many times, and she painted pictures of the Lord. And people who have died and gone to heaven have seen her pictures and said, yeah, that's him. That's who I talked to. That's Jesus. So I have faith. I know too many people have confirmed this. So go look at the pictures of by Akiane. She's the only child prodigy, both in, now she's grown up, but at the time from 5 years old, her paintings go for $100,000, crazy. But they're this big as a room. And they're amazing, and she's the only child prodigy in both poetry and art, double prodigy in the world that they know of, that they've tested. She's been interviewed by Oprah Winfrey and all kinds of people. But I just focused on that, and I asked the question, and then I would just I'd stare at her like I'm talking with a friend, and I'm waiting for him to answer. Now I have some problems receiving or hearing, because I'm very antsy. It's hard for me to sit still, be quiet. You know, Psalms 46:10 says you need to be still. It literally means cease from activity in the Hebrew and the Greek. You got to cease, and you got to be quiet. You know, stop talking and stop doing. Take a vacation, man, from yourself. And then you'll know the Lord. Yada, or gnosko, means to experience. It's not know about the Lord information. It's really to experience the Lord. And, you know, to have a personal, relational experience. That's what it really means. And in that verse, it means Elohim, which is the plural of God. It's the majestic plural, they call it. We like the royal we, but it's not a literary thing. Elohim is literally the Godhead. It's us. We will create them in our image. They will be like us. You know, this kind of language. It's definitely a reference to the triune God, you know, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But at the time, all that wasn't necessarily revealed, right? Revelation, you know, there's a process of revelation. You know, little children can't handle major revelations, so they have to be matured. And it says just at the right time Jesus was revealed to them. So here we go. So I asked this question, and then I listened, I watched. I said, show me the answer. Show me, because there's a lot written in the New Testament about this. It's called prosuke prayer. The verb is prosukamai. It means to have a conversation, a dialogue. It is not the same as, you can go look at my prayer button. It's not the same as supplication, where you're giving God a list of requests, right? And it's not even necessarily ask, seek, or knock. In many cases, those reference asking God for something. So it's still a monologue. But when you look at all the places in prosuke, the noun, prosukamai, the verb is used, it's referring to a special kind of dialogue, a conversation. Let me got another truck here. So the truck went by. It's a special conversation as you would have with, not, how do I say it? Not as a subordinate under a boss. It's as a child with a family member, or a father or mother. So it's not unequal conversation, but of equals, So it's not really talking about, cowering under a table in front of the king, that kind of conversation. It's really, or, on your knees, you can't look up type thing. But it's really talking about, friendship conversation. So that's what prosuke means. Waiting upon the Lord. You call on the Lord and you wait. And you watch. There's a lot of words about watching. Being alert and gazing and using your, with wide open eyes. There's a lot of uses of the word autonomai or trazomai. These key words that refer to orhora, having a vision, or ido, mentally seeing, to perceive, to understand. So it's like you're looking inwards for this. So I'm kind of doing this, just waiting upon the Lord. And actually, it took about 2 hours. I lost track of time. That's what will happen. So my first question is, I wanted to know, how did Jesus, when he was here on this earth, he was a man, he was 30 some years old when he was in ministry, but he lived and he worked before he revealed himself. So he had it says he was tempted in all ways. He was tested in all ways. I don't know why this gets crooked, but was without sin. And I'm like, wow, this world is so in your face, man. And I'm saying, even as I'm married, I've been married for all this time, 9 years, but still, the way women dress it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and it's all over the internet. Whether you're looking for it or not, doesn't matter. It's on TV, the TV interviews, news. It's ridiculous. So, and when you go shopping, and I was talking to these men, I'm like, this is a nonstop barrage. It's really a struggle constantly to not look and to not sit there and dwell on, beauty, and to go down that path and now you're exciting your physical body, and I'm old, 62, but I still get, oh my gosh, and I don't need that. I'm trying to walk for the Lord, and all this constant barrage, tug of war. I feel like so many times I'm at the end of Romans chapter 7, still stuck there in this huge battle Paul's talking about between his flesh, the desires of his flesh, the passions and what he knows is right. He knows what the Lord's telling him what to do, and he says, I know good is right there, but evil is right around there. It's right there ready to get me. And there's this constant battle, and he says, oh, wretched man that I am. And I feel like so much of the time I'm in this constant battle, and I feel, oh, wretched man that I am. Because I'll tell you, a lot of times, especially if I'm tired, I just don't have the strength to fight this battle. I'm tired or I'm not concentrating, my mind can wander really easily. And I'm like, I just want more victory. And I'm asking these guys who've been married 15 to 37 years, how do you get, and I got a whole pages, maybe I'll go through that and do another video. But I wanted to get from the Lord first. So I asked, how did you not lust? That word means to crave, to long for, to strongly desire, to hunger or thirst for. And it's just so, if I'm weak, it seems like in this world, it's really a bad world right now. Everybody I know feels like they're just being attacked. So what's showing up in the physical realm is really a representation of what's going on in the spiritual realm. So I said, how did you not fall prey to this? You saw it all. You were around. He was around prostitutes, and they criticized him for this. They were decked out. They were looking really great. I mean, just like girls do today. They just go overboard. They're flaunting it, man. You got it, flaunt it. And they made their livelihood doing this. And he was around them, and he was trying to say them. He says, I came for the sick. I'm going to put a pause. I'm getting eaten up by bugs. So, Beelzebub is called the Lord of the Flies. And, there was no mosquitoes until I started talking about this. So, I was at a gospel rescue mission, and there was no flies until we went up to the microphone to start preaching the gospel. Beelzebub is the prince and power of the air and everything in the air. He is the little g god of this world. He owns the kingdoms of this world, and he said to Jesus, if you bow down and worship me, I will give them to you. He had the dominion right to do that. So that's what we're facing in this world. So I asked him, how did you not fall prey to this? How did you not lust? And how did you then not follow through on that lust? I mean, he was a man. He had all the functionality of a man. That means all the desires. I mean, his flesh. He was fully flesh, fully man. And yet, he did not sin. And I'm like, that seems impossible. And that's what the disciples said when they were discussing about marriage and all these things. And they said, man, this is impossible. Who can possibly do this? And he said, well, with man, that's para where we have parallel. So with man, it's impossible. It's absolutely it's adunatos, which means you cannot possibly do it. You're not able to do this. Not at all. You're absolutely unable to do this. But para, with God, alongside, parallel, says then it is possible. Everything's possible. Nothing is impossible. It's like a double negative. So isn't that awesome? And so I said, how do you do this? How did you not lust and follow through on it? Okay? And there's so many ways you can follow through on lust. I mean, A to Z. And so how did you do this so that I can follow in your footsteps? Follow me literally means do what I do. Keeping in step. Paul talks about keeping in step with the Spirit. And the Greek word there means you're so close to the Spirit as your leader, as a commander in front of the troops, that as you're marching, you can see the commander step to the left or to the right, and you're in sync with them. You're stepping in sync, left, right. You can hear them saying left, right, but you can also see them going left, right. And you're doing what they're doing. And if they turn left, you're turning left with them. You're turning right, you're turning right. And that's what Paul said, keep in step with the Spirit. Wow. I want to know how you do that, because it's the Spirit of the Lord. It says that always, the Spirit of Christ. all through the New Testament. It's the Spirit of Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit. It's the Spirit of holiness. That's what we're asking for. How can I be holy? How can I follow the Spirit of Christ? By keeping in step with Him. And thus be led. This is another word Paul uses, being led by the Spirit. So we got a commander in front of us, and we're being led by that Spirit. And he uses another term, walking by the means of the Spirit. It's not walking in the Spirit. You're not like walking inside the Spirit. Literally, in pneumati means by the means of the Spirit. Always means by the dative case. In is not in the location of, but by the means of the Spirit. And this is what the Lord, I waited, and this is what the Lord told me. And it just, I see words come right into my head, and I'm just writing down what I see come into my head, and sometimes it pauses, and like I only got part of it, then I have to wait. So I'm still having a difficult time. My wife does this very fluently. She has a book she's publishing on something hearing from God, but it all started from a book called 4 Keys to Hearing God's Voice by Mark and Patty Verkler. And they have it translated in 32 countries, and they help people hear the voice of the Lord. And it changes everything. So I need to get back to doing this, because I do a lot of Bible study. You can see I've done too much. And he's saying, that's not the way I teach. That's not the way I teach, the Lord says. Watch my, and I don't want to go into that, but there's a lot, even in the New Testament, about the way the Lord teaches. So he says, watch my steps. This is what he says. And I'm actually watching him step. All of a sudden I see these legs, and he's in sandals, and I just see these legs, and I can't take my eyes off his feet. And they're stepping, and I see, watch my steps. I said, wow, that's odd. He talks so interestingly. And he said, I didn't see my father lust after women. You know, the Greek gods, they were always lusting after women. My gosh. Zeus, they were always sleeping with women. Actually, they're demons, we find out, because in the Old Testament it talks about these so-called gods that were fallen angels. They were angels, you know, posing as gods to rule over men, and they came down to earth, and they found the women found favor in the eyes of the women, or vice versa, basically. And it says they took the women and bred with them, and the result of that was these demigods, demiurge, and these were Cyclops. They were mutants, Hercules, and all these superhumans. They were called Nephilim, the giants, the mighty warrior. They were giants that walked on the earth. Cyclops was a giant. And these super warriors like Hercules. And, you know, there's an element of truth to the myths. They get retold and embellished over time of the Greeks. But these were demons, and they had gods called Nephilim, were the giants. That was the offspring of these angels. And these angels that left their proper domain, Jude says, I think the book of Enoch talks about this too. These angels that left their proper domain, they were bound in Tartarus with chains, waiting for the day of judgment. See, they really screwed up earth, and that was the reason why Noah's flood had to come to wipe out the earth, because there was 8,000 of these giants that were basically causing so much evil on the planet that there was only 8 people left that were not literally evil. And so these demonic beings greatly influenced, and they were all vying for power, fighting. Great wars went on, and I got sidetracked on that, but he said, watch my steps. I didn't see my father lust after women, nor satisfy the desires of lust. And that's what the Lord said. Wow. And I thought, well, he didn't bring up the whole Greek gods thing, but that just came to me right now. Boom. But he said, I didn't see my father lust after women, nor satisfy the desires of lust. And so I asked the question, I should have asked this question. Why does that matter? Because somewhere in the New Testament, Jesus says, I only do and say what I only say and do what I see my Father in heaven say and do. And see how that works? Jesus doesn't say or do anything on his own authority. He only does what he sees his Father say and do. And so Jesus is kind of maybe reminding me of that. But he tells me to watch my steps. But he's kind of implying that he was watching his Father's steps. See, I'm watching Jesus' steps. It's kind of a metaphor for the way he lives. It's step walking. That is peripateo, means to walk all about, to walk all around. And it's synonymous with live. How you live is how you walk all around, through life. It's your travels through life. And so by watching Jesus' steps, we're really watching how he lives. And he's kind of saying here that, hey, I watched my Father and how he lives. And I only did what I saw and heard. Right? So then I asked the question, how did you ignore the voice of your flesh? Because he was flesh, like a human being, a man. And it desires. The flesh has desires. It wants to eat, it wants to have sex, it wants to have, it has all these desires that just pop up and they captivate you. So I asked him that question. And this is what Jesus said. My mind and heart, so he said both. I think the Jews kind of believe the mind, heart, and the inner being were all synonymous. They kind of use them interchangeably. But the Lord's told me in other things that when he talks about his mind, he's talking about his thinking, the way he thinks about things. And when he talks about his heart, he's talking about the way he feels about things, his care. Like my Father's mind is very, what did he say, about gardening. I said, how does he know how to grow all these plants? Why, in his garden, everything is perfectly growing. He goes, my Father's mind is great. And so he has all the details, information about all these plants and their particular needs. I'm a gardener, so every plant has specific needs: soil, water, light, everything. But he says, my Father's mind is perfect. It is complete. And then I said, but it's so exhausting. Sometimes it takes an hour or 2 hours in the morning just to do my chores to take care of my gardens. And I can't imagine how, even though God is God and can do all these amazing things, he's got a lot of gardens. He showed me gardens of the world. Did a Google Maps type thing. Wow. And they're vast. And he said, my Father's heart is perfect. And he cares so much for his gardens. And that's why he takes the time. Time is something he has to choose. He chooses that too. But he cares, so he spends time caring for his gardens. Wow, I was blown away about that. So he says, my mind and heart were filled up with desire for what I watch. He says they were filled. So he's talking about his life here on earth, 33 years. It says, they were filled up, my heart, my mind were filled up with desire for what I watch my Father do. That's interesting. So he's watching, he's listening, he's inclining his ear. You know, you really see words. You really see words too, you know. You don't just hear words, because when they go in your ear, it's the sound waves, you know. And they have to be created, turned into mental pictures. So you're really internally seeing sound waves based on the way your brain interprets these sound waves. It's wild. So you got to see an orange, and then you say orange, and then from that point on you have a mental picture that says, oh, orange in my language, English, equals this picture, orange, and it tastes like this. So there's all these pictures, and then there's some kind of picture for taste. Wow. And he says that desire, it said, filled up with desire for what I watch my Father doing. That desire was love, and it consumed me. That desire was love, and it consumed me. It's all I desire. So there was no room within me for any other desires. He's talking, that desire was love, and it consumed me. It's all I desire. Past, present, future. It's all that I desire. So there was no room within me when he was in the flesh for any other desires. I was full of love, so there was no emptiness that I would desire anything other than love. Wow. My cup runneth over. Now we've heard that before. I think it was David said, my cup runneth over. I don't know where. Probably Psalms. So that was that. So let's say that again. My mind and heart were filled with desire for what I watch my Father do. That desire was love, and it consumed me. It's all I desire. So there was no room within me for any other desires. I was full of love, so there was no emptiness that I would desire anything other than love. My cup runneth over. And that's how he answered, how did you ignore the voice of your flesh and its desires? So then I asked the question, Jesus, how did you watch the Father say and do, right? Say and do, and not get distracted by all the hot women, babes of your day? Because, you know, there were a lot around him. You know, you can't go to the grocery store, you can't go to the marketplace, and he was around a lot of riffraff, man. So how did you not get distracted by all these hot babes of your day? You know, and I have a great wife, so you would think, in one ear, out the other, in one eye, out the other, but it's the flesh, you know, 53 years without being married, it just goes in. There's probably files and files of this stuff. And he says, I said, how do you do this? How did you not get distracted by the mental pictures that stream in? Mental pictures, they fly by, and sometimes they grab you. And the tingle, there's a tingle, like, you know, oh, I want that ice cream. You know, there's certain things it's like a tingle inside you. The idea comes in. You know, I used to be really into ice cream sundaes, but now it's sometimes it's like a coffee. But coffees do really bad things to me. You know, messes my stomach up, gives me headaches, and it causes me to be very hyper. And my wife hates it when I've had caffeine. So everybody's got some tingle. The idea comes in your head, and then it doesn't just fly by. Sometimes it tingles you. It gives you woohoo. You know, you get a little excited. Oh, that's what I want. Yeah, that's what I want. And then sometimes you can't get it out of your mind. It's all like an obsession. Like, you try to change the subject, you get back into work, you're working out, you try to sublimate it, you try to change the subject. I try to stay busy, but it's just gnawing at you, and it's building up inside you until you burn. You're literally burning. You're burning up. It's like, oh, I gotta get that. I'm so thirsty, right? You just go, I'm so hungry. I'm so thirsty for X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. And you just burn up. And it's almost like you go insane. It's like you're willing to drop everything. And your mind just turns off, and you just gotta get in your car or whatever, and you gotta just go and do it. You just gotta get it done. You just gotta get it. And I think there's a lust for almost everything. A covet. It says, thou shalt not covet. It's the same thing. It's to long for, to crave, to strongly desire. And it's all that, and it's common in man and women. So I said, how did you not get distracted by this? And it says, I didn't even have my glasses when I was writing these. How did your father's watching, how did this watching your father win out over all this? Oh my gosh, there's this long process. I think James says, no, God is never tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. So that translation says, lead us not into temptation. In the Lord's Prayer is horrible. The Greek word does not mean that. It means to not lead us into a situation of testing in order to prove something is genuine, right? You test metals, you test the genuineness of something. It's usually through persecution, trials, and hardships. So really the prayer is saying, protect me from the evil one. And that's what it says right after. It says, but deliver us from the evil one. In other words, don't let me be anywhere around the evil one, because he's going to bring hardships and trials, tribulation, persecution, and you need to protect me. Put a hedge of protection. Protect me and my family. That is the prayer we should be praying. Is keep us guarded, right? Just keep us guarded. So I asked that question, and this is the answer I got. So what was the question? Jesus, how did you watch the Father say and do? How is my question, and not get distracted by the hot babes of the day, the mental pictures that stream in, and the tingle and even burn of fleshly desire. How did your Father's watching win out? I didn't spray my legs, and now I'm getting eaten by... See, that's demonic, right? I'm going to put a pause. Well, I'm going to give you the answer, and then we'll go on to another video to get more questions. This is what he said. I loved my Father for an eternity, always being together. I love him the same, and we are still together inside of me for this time that I am in the flesh. So he's referring to his past, because I asked him, how did he do this in his flesh? I love him the same, and we are still together inside of me for this time that I am in the flesh. I feel his love and cannot harm him. This is the love I desire. So there, it's really saying this is the desire that I love. And he's saying this is the love I desire. This is the desire of his heart, right? So there is no room left in me to entertain anybody or anything else. I see it present. This is what it says. I see it, the situation, present itself like knocking on my door to come in. But I look away back to my desire for my Father's love. So he saw it coming, and he hears it knocking. But I look away to my desire for my Father's love. It is so compelling, so captivating. It gets all my attention. So the knocking pests, he calls them pests. Whoever is knocking on his door, he calls these pests. These knocking pests eventually cease, like a door-to-door salesman. The word gets around. He never answers his door. Why bother knocking? We will go somewhere else. And so this is pretty encouraging. He's saying, you know, these demons that are presenting this, knocking, they will go away because after a while, I'm not answering the door. They know it's a waste of time. So they're going to go somewhere else. So I'm going to go to page 3 of 8. See how powerful this is? So he's telling us to do the same. So let's go to the next video, because this is the 35 minutes. So if you have some interaction on this video, go ahead and put that down on the comments section so we can learn from one another. And I'll probably put some links down there for maybe something that comes to me as I listen to this video, okay? God bless you. And let's go to the next video. So, bye-bye.